What's up guys, I'm Phoenix Master 1 and welcome to my breakdown of the Attuned Young Tiki and Archanea Banner, and I would like to start with a 4-star focus in Medeus. A bit of a younger Medeus. He hasn't gone the Shadow Dragon mode yet, so he is a 4-star focus and a demote, and he's a blue infantry dragon. Now the thing about him is that he comes with a preferred weapon, and this is our first preferred weapon demote after female Ches in 2022. So it has been a long time, and even back then, like, female Ches's weapon wasn't really all that insane. I mean, not that Medeus's weapon is insane, but still it's decent. So here he has got Ancient Betrayal, and this has got +3 attack built in it, and then at sort of both player phase and enemy phase, if his HP is at or above 25%, then he's going to be giving himself and the allies in 2 spaces the +6 attack and resistance buff, the On Guard status, and the Dull Alt status. So On Guard status is something that he introduced into the game, and back when he came out, he was an essential part of Aether Raid's defense because Bolt Tower was just so powerful. I mean, still it is, but now we have got Divine Nectar and stuff like that that can give you the healing, so he's not needed as much despite the safety fence level 2. So On Guard basically, just eliminates any kind of out of combat damage, be it from your own Fury skills, be it from the friendly fire damage from something like Dual Lift or Limstella's weapon, but it does not prevent the AoE damage. So that is usually a point of confusion, as a lot of people think this is going to be saving you against the AoE damage, but it does not save you against the special damage. It only saves you against the out of combat damage. So On Guard is pretty unique, and he's the only other unit after Mythic Medeus to have this, but Mythic Medeus is going to be getting a refine and remix next month, so I think he's going to be getting better, and that's why we have got this 4-star focus Medeus. And he also gives out the Dull Alt status, which Marnie already gives out, so it overlaps a bit if you're going to be running him in Arena, because Medeus here is going to be outscoring female Kana because of having a preferred weapon. He is going to be a solid Arena scoring unit, but this is that he is going to be hard to plus and merge, being a unit that you'll have to summon. You cannot just go into the Grail shop like female Kana or Marnie and just get the copies of them. So that's the difficulty with these kinds of units. Like, you really need to get lucky to merge them up. And I'm saying this as someone who summons on every single banner with my main account, and even I have trouble merging up some of these demote units. So you definitely have the chance of trying to plus and merge Medeus when he's a 4-star focus on this banner. Without the focus, it is really brutal. And then he has got some in-combat debuffs on the enemy, and the amount of debuffs that he does to the attack, defense, and resistance of the enemy depends on 20% of his visible resistance at start of combat added with 5. So this is going to be around like 16 to 17. It can also go up to 18 depending on the base resistance that he has got, but usually it is around this. And then he has got some true damage and flat damage reduction, which is going to be dependent on the number of staff and dragon allies on the map, excluding himself, and this is going to be multiplied by 5 and then added by 10. So it's not going to be the easiest to slot in a dragon or staff unit when it comes to Arena, for example. So you'll have to manage your team, but in every other game mode, it's not going to be the hardest, as you do not have to feel like an entire emblem of those kinds of units. It's not the hardest to reach the cap, but I do realize that for stuff like Arena, it may be a bit challenging, but still, this kind of flat damage reduction and true damage for a demote unit is definitely good. And this kind of true damage is not going to be getting added to your AoE special, and it's also not going to be protecting you against the AoE specials of the enemies. And then he has got Scal built into this weapon. Now, this is good to have for the flexibility, because you could either choose to stack up the Scal effect. It does stack up with the slotty skill, or you could choose to run some other slotty skill. If we get some more dragon skills in the future, which is probably gonna be happening, then you could try and run those skills in the slotty and still have the Scal effect in his weapon. And there's also the Echo Scal that we have got, so you certainly have the options of stacking it up, with the slotty skill, but At some point, it may not help you that much because we do have the units with extremely low cooldown specials like Emblem Erica, and then they have Null Guard, and then they have Special Charges effect. So they're not going to be getting stopped by the Scal effect. So Scal effect is a good defensive effect to have. It can help you against the preempt pulses that we get, but Scal is only going to be affecting the offensive specials and not the defensive specials, and this is going to be having the resistance check. Then he's got Glacies, he's going to be wanting Dragon's Roar for sure, and then he has got Defense Risk Gal 3 as a demote, so this is going to be helping you a lot when it comes to the prerequisite fodder. And then he has got Attack Ploy. He doesn't have a preferred sloppy skill, but still there are good options, being an infantry dragon that he can try and run, stack up the flat damage reduction. So I'm pretty happy with what they've done with Medeus. Having a demo dragon that he can try and plus and merge, even though it's going to be taking some luck, is good to have. So his weapon is decent and certainly workable. And then we have got our Attuned Young Tiki. So this time she is a green infantry dragon, and being a green unit in a metagame where we have just got Emblem Erica is gonna be tough, but I mean, she does have multiple layers of flat damage reduction, so it is something that we'll have to test out. And if she ends up having good amount of speed, then she can just prevent being quad attacked by Emblem Erica, and her damage output is gonna be really powerful. So Emblem Erica is not gonna be surviving that, and she also has Hardy Bearing here. So I mean, she does have the makings, but again, as I said, we'll have to test her out and see if she can, try and win that kind of matchup, because it is certainly an uphill battle. So here she has got her preferred weapon in Ancient Voice, and it has got Slaying built in it. It also has the Dragon effective damage, which is going to be helping you quite a lot against the Duo Reyes of the world, because that's a really common unit, and that kind of Dragon effective damage can really help you against these kinds of units to, just punch through the near saviors in that regard. And then at sort of turn, if she's within 2 spaces of an ally, then she gives herself and the allies in 2 spaces the +6 speed and defense buff, the Bulwark status, and the Null debuff status. So the Bulwark status is good to have when we have units with really high mobility like Emblem Sigurd. So this way you can prevent your backline units from getting sniped. If you've used Attuned Hector, then you know how valuable this kind of effect is. And Null debuffs is going to be preventing any kind of debuffs from slowing her down. Then she's got Sandstorm built in her weapon, which means that if she triggers her special, she's going to be using 150% of her defense for the damage output instead of using her attack. And if you have used Attuned Chimera, you know how insane this is. Because if you run her with Emblem Erica Ring, she can just try and bring down units to their miracle, and then, just finish them off with the Brave hit. So it does have good synergy with it, and Sandstorm is extremely effective. We also have a variant of it on Ronan in Snowstorm, which scales off his resistance, and I mean, that's a very powerful effect for damage output. And being a modern unit, she's going to be able to use that. She also gets extra stats in the combat depending on the allies in 3 spaces multiplied by 3, added by 5. So she's going to be able to get max 14. And then there is the true damage, where she is going to be scaling it off based on 20% of her defense. And then she's got flat damage reduction on the foe's first attacks, including the Brave hits depending on her defense. So she is meant to be fast. We do not know her stats, but she is meant to be fast. That's why she's got this first attack damage reduction. And that may not be the best because she is spreading herself thin. You have to allocate your stats into speed. Then you have to allocate your stats into resistance for the Scowl. Then you have to allocate the stats into the defense for the Sandstorm and Dragon Flame. And then you're left with your attack, which may be lower, and her HP, which is certainly lower at base 36. So, as I said, having that kind of archetype of a unit that tries to function with these many stats and these many different effects that require those stats, it is going to be a challenge. But she is going to be a trainee unit, most likely being a, young dragon. That always happens. We have seen it since the first year of the game. So that is going to be helping her quite a lot in terms of stats for these checks. And then finally, she has got Hardy Bearing built into her weapon. Now, this is the first unit to have Hardy Bearing in their weapon, being this kind of tank. Usually Hardy Bearing was seen built into the weapons of units that were offensive, like literally Lilina, for example. In the very first year of the game, we had Hushiden Summer Micaiah, and then we had this on some of the inheritable daggers that were used quite a lot in Aether Raid's defense back then, and the closest you could have had this kind of effect on a tank unit was on Lucia in both of her versions, but obviously Lucia never had this layer flat damage reduction in multiple ways. So here Tiki is going to be really insane with the damage output of hers, and then she stops the desperation effect of Emblem Lin. She also stops that from the allies of hers. She also stops any kind of niche vantage strategies that's out there, but there has to be the defense check that is to be met. And again, if she ends up having as high of a defense as Temera because she's got Sandstorm, then she could end up becoming a really solid unit. So again, we'll need to test her out, but it is looking promising to me with the effects that she has got. And Desperation is so common nowadays in the metagame. We have got this on Emblem Lin, on Firestorm Dance that is present in the Divine Codes, and then on Desert Tethys, who's a 4-star focus. So, I mean, this was going to be happening at some point to bolster the tanking, because these kinds of nukes can just have the desperation effect and hit so hard like 4 times, and you only have one Hardy Bearing Sacred Seal. Either that goes onto the Far Savior, or it goes onto the Near Savior, or you could have it on a frontliner like her in Tiki. So you cannot have multiple Hardy Bearings, but here she does help you with that. And then she has got an inheritable Dragon special that scales off the defense, and it's like an Ignis, but it restores 30% HP depending on the max HP that you've got. So this is a bit reminiscent of units like Halloween Male Grima, who had this kind of healing, but now it's present in a special. And yeah, it is going to be stacking up with those kinds of healing effects if those units have it in their preferred weapon. And this is going to be a great special for some of the dragons that end up having higher defense than usually. They didn't have that many defense scaling skills, because we have got Scal, we have got these Dragon Wall skills that scale off the resistance. So when we're talking about units like original Adult Tiki, then she can make use of this kind of special, and there are many dragons who can also make use of that, because there are going to be many of the nukes like Micaiah's who have very high resistance, so meeting the resistance check every single time may be a bit hard. So having the defense scaling against some of the nukes is going to be helping you, and this does have the special damage reduction that you get out of the Armored Beacon, for example. But here it is always going to be there in the enemy phase, because it does have a condition where it's always active when the foe initiates combat. So that's a good news for a lot of the dragons, because they are mainly going to be enemy phase oriented. But if you use this on an armored dragon and you use a twin save scale, then this is going to be letting it trigger twice in a single combat. So for the armor dragons, this may be useful, and that's the reason why they may choose to run a twin scale over higher or lower ground, because it can help you with the damage reduction, which is going to be unpierceable. Then she's got distant bonus doubler for the distant counter effect, and because she gives out the visible buffs, it's pretty easy for her to take advantage of it. And mostly she's going to be staying near her allies. And then she's got a skill that scales off the speed and edge scales, so this is going to be giving you even more flat damage reduction. And then it has got the mini frozen effect or the rift effect, which can make it harder for the enemy to double. She depends on the enemy not doubling her, because she only gets the damage reduction out of her weapon on the first hits. And then she's got her preferred slotsy skill in Love for All, and it has got a cute dragon plushie in the icon. So this has got the 3-space drive built in it, so she's going to be supporting her allies with +5 speed, defense, and resistance. And she also gives out the Lagoo's Friend style pre-impulse. Now, we do not have too many units that give this out as a support. We have got Elamine, and then we have got Duo Winter Lear with the Divinely Inspiring status. So this is good for the tanks which have these kinds of defensive specials. And then she can get the AoE damage reduction depending on the number of allies in 3 spaces multiplied by 40%, and maxes can be 80% AoE damage reduction. So this is really helpful as a frontliner when you have to face Emblem Sigurd, so they just go after my boy nowadays. He just has been getting countered so much with all of these tanky units with the AoE damage reduction. We just had Duorea, and now another dragon comes in with the AoE damage reduction. We've also got modern AoE damage reduction support units with Spring Veil and this new Gotoh that we have got. Tiki also gets +5 to all of her stats, and then she can get up to 14 flat damage reduction depending on foes' first attacks, depending on the X. So here X is going to be number of allies in 3 spaces, max this could be 3, so it is going to be getting multiplied by 7 for the flat damage reduction, and then depending on the allies that you have, you are going to be getting the Lagu style pre-impulse, which is going to be helping you immediately trigger your specials before you attack the enemy, so it helps you retaliate back with it, and it also helps you charge that special up with the Lagu style pre-impulse. So it's really good with her special. It's tailor-made for that, and it also is going to be helping you trigger the Sandstorm damage, and then she gets the full piercing on her special triggers. She does have Res Gal Echo, so this Attune skill is going to be helping many of the dragons, but I think many of the dragons may choose to run Distant Counter Echo, because if you're not an infantry dragon, then you cannot get Distant Bonus Doubler, and because of that, you're not going to be able to stack up as many stats. I mean, Res Gal does give you the resistance, but it's only +4, so this is going to be helpful for many of the dragons, and this kind of Scal Attune scale is going to be so good on many of the flying and cavalry dragons because they're trying to function in the player phase, a lot of them. So Attuned Young Tiki does look promising with her effects. It is to be tested out, but like I said, she's trying to do too many things at the same time with her stat spread. She has all of these checks, so I hope that she's got good stat allocation. And then we have got Naga here in her primordial form. And that's what I like to call these alts because of Primordial, Groudon, and Kyogre. So here's Naga as the colorless flying dragon, and she's got her Ancient Majesty as her preferred weapon, which does make sense. I mean, every Falchion is basically Naga's Fang, and this does have Slaying built in it. She has got the monopoly on the dragon effective damage, of course, and it's sort of both player phase and enemy phase. She's going to be debuffing the closest foes and the foes in 2 spaces of them with the -7 attack and resistance debuff, the frozen status, and the guard status. So the frozen status is going to be applied at start of turn, which means that it can be cleansed. It's not a middle of the turn frozen status like of Spring Plumeria, and frozen status is a bit weird on a unit that debuffs your resistance and attack and does not debuff your speed or defense, because frozen status depends on your defense and the speed also complements it, but she doesn't debuff those stats. So it's certainly a bit weird. Guard status doesn't have that much value with all of these pre-impulses and null guard, but still sometimes it can be just another good effect that it can have on the enemy, which is going to be forcing the enemy Attune Micaiah or Ninja Celine to cleanse it, which means that the other status get to stay. But of course, Freya doesn't care about any of this. Then she can get up to +14 to all of her stats. She does have true damage based on 15% of the foe's attack. Because she doesn't have the highest attack despite being Naga. She is focusing on her defense and resistance, as you can see with the stat spread. She's the only unit that we see with her stat spread out of this entire batch. And then she's got 50% damage reduction piercing in her weapon, so it's a good thing that she doesn't need to run dragon scales or something like that for the piercing. She does have Dragon's Roar, Attack Resistance Scowl, and also the tier 4 version of Attack Resistance Neotrace, which is going to be used by few units, mainly the dragons. And then she's got her preferred Slotsy skill in Divine Godfang. I love the name, it just sounds so good and badass. But anyways, it has got Omni Guidance 4 built in it, so she's going to be enabling the warping, which is good because, I mean, it's occupying her Slotsy, so it better increase the mobility, and she can also now run Soaring Echo. So I always like it when these flying units have Omni Guidance in their Slotsy. And then at sort of both player phase and enemy phase, to herself and the 2-space allies, she's going to be giving the dragon effective damage, which again is going to be helping you quite a lot because this does have the 2-space range, because the Mythic Naga was a bit stingy when it came to giving out the dragon effective effect because she only gave that out to adjacent allies even after her remix. But this Naga does give that in 2 spaces, and this also means that it is going to be helping you against many of the matchups like of Duo Rhea. Again, she is a very strong unit with her Miracle, and she also gives out the Dragon Shield in case you're a dragon and you would like to not get hit by her effective damage. So she basically gives you the sword and then gives you the shield, and she also gives you the empathy status, which can help you stack up the stats. It can go up to +7. We have seen this on Emblem Erica on Rune, who did introduce this, and she also gets Omni +5 to all of her stats. She also gets the 7 true damage and flat damage reduction, which of course is not going to be there for the AoE specials, and then she also has cooldown +1 per attack. So this can help her trigger Dragon's Roar a bit easily, being a dragon, but it's a bit of a hard archetype to do because you're going to be trying to function in the player phase, being a flying unit, but at the same time, with her stat spread, she's also trying to be defensive. She doesn't have the highest speed, so she's going to be trying to do both of those things, and it's going to be hard to excel at both of them. And dragons do not have any kind of Gale Force. I hope that they can get Gale Force because we just have had so many enemy phase dragons. Having player phase dragons might be cool, so I hope that happens eventually. So that's Naga, not really all that insane, but still, the dragon effective damage can help you, and if you're a dragon, then the dragon shield status can help you not get nuked by the dragon effective damage. And usually that kind of dragon shield effect isn't really given out all that easily, and this is the easiest way to get it. And then finally we have got Primordial Gotoh, or younger Gotoh, I suppose, as a red infantry mage, and because he's not a mythic, he can be blessed and can be used in different seasons, even in the Astra season. And now that Nurgle has been just nerfed to the ground with the dosage status of Nidhoggers, you can easily try and have the AoE damage reduction, but still, you'll need to watch out for Mythic Lokis that are still there in the Dark Season. So here, he has got his preferred weapon, which has got Slaying built in it, at sort of both player phase and enemy phase, to himself and the allies in 2 spaces. He's going to be giving out the +6 attack and resistance buff, the 80% AoE damage reduction, which his mythic version did introduce. So I do like the parallel between Gotoh and Medeus with the status effects, which they did introduce. And then he also has the dull ult status, just like Medeus. So again, the parallels are nice. Then he can debuff the enemy for about -18 to their attack and resistance. This is going to be scaling off his visible resistance, so this can be really high because of his slot A. And then he also has true damage based on 20% of his resistance, and this is also going to be added into the AoE special. So while he can protect you against the AoE specials, he himself can be an AoE nuke. So that kind of true damage is going to be helping him function with that. And being an infantry unit, it's so easy to get the pulse effects and just pre-charge your special and just go out there with the AoE nuking. And then he also has the flat damage reduction, which he really needed in his mythic version. So this flat damage reduction helps him with the tanking, but it seems like he has given up on that kind of Irvine effect in his slot A, which forced the enemy to just forcefully consecutive attack. So here it is going to be giving him the guaranteed follow-up attack as well because he's slow. And then he has got 7 HP healing after the combat. He is going to be appreciating the Frost Moon despite him being there with the guaranteed follow-up attack because it is going to be a good insurance. But of course that will take the sacrifice of a Athos, who is also a very powerful unit. And then he has got his slotted skill in Gift of Guidance, and this is going to be giving you +10 attack, defense, and resistance. All of these are visible stats, which means that it helps you against the visible checks. So here it is going to be helping you with the Pulse Deploy, so he does take the book out of, Rayon Sonia, Athos, with all of those units who have the visible stats. And then at sort of turn, to himself and the 2-space allies, he gives out the -2 cooldown pulse. He gives that to himself, and also if there is any kind of magic or staff ally in that radius. But if you're not a magic connoisseur, then he only gives you -1 cooldown pulse support, which is still not bad. Then he has got null debuffs, which is good to have because you're trying to increase your visible stats by quite a bit, so having this effect does help. He also has the guard effect, which, as I said, doesn't have the highest value, but still, it's sometimes going to be useful for tanking. And then he also has the passive 50% damage reduction piercing, so he doesn't need the resonance slot B skill that badly, and he can certainly afford to run the other slot B options. And boy, he does bring a pretty nice slot B option in Attack Res Havoc. So this is going to be debuffing the foes at sort of both player and enemy phase that have less resistance than him for -7 attack and resistance debuff, the Sabotage status, and the Schism status. Now, just as a recap, the Schism status was introduced with Ninja Heather with an inheritable ruse skill, so it basically disables the Triangle Attack, Dual Strike status, and the Pathfinder status, and all of them are actually still meta, but Schism status is a start of turn debuff, which means that it's susceptible to getting cleansed by Freyr again. It's not a middle of the turn debuff like of the Ruse skill, so it is going to be helping your Ether Raid's defense against the Triangle Attack Emblem Lin users and all of those teams, but it may not matter because we have got Emblem Erica just nuking everyone out there with her brave attacks. So it's going to be one of those skills that can help you against many of the Pathfinder Dagger teams as well, especially in summoner duels. And one interesting thing is that if it's cleansed by, something like the middle of the turn cleansing of Ymir, when the Schism status is cleansed, then it is going to be taking the Triangle Attack, Dual Strike, and Pathfinder effects with it. So the only way of avoiding that is by having Freyr. So again, Freyr is the king here for the cleansing. So Schism status is not present on that many units. There's like E3 out there who can, debuff you, and of course the Ruse skills. So you would not have to try and use stuff like the recovery cleansing. You need the Freyr kind of cleansing to avoid this, and this may have consequences for Ether Raid's defense and summoner duels. And then he has got Pulse Deploy, which is going to be helping you pre-charge your special. So again, the Frost Moon type of playstyle and nuking is going to be pretty nice. And then we have got Xane as the Grand Hero Battle free-to-play Grail unit, and I do think that he has got a preferred weapon because he gets too many stats in the screenshot that they have shown us in the FEH channel. So that doesn't seem like an inheritable weapon that's going to be out there for everyone. So overall, this banner is going to be having its main value in Tiki. She carries this banner, but still, as I said, I'll need to test her out to see if she can survive these kinds of meta threats. But outside of that, this is not going to be a banner that's going to be too incentivizing for many people, especially when we have got the young banner that has got young Camilla has such an insane nuke. So it's going to be having competition, and at the end of the month, we're going to be having a lot of banners that you could also try and summon for, which may have a lot of favorite lords of many people. And now let's take a look at what they showed us in the FEH channel. So the 35 Fire Emblem anniversary is here. We're going to be having some trade fruits, which is not even in the multiple of hundreds, so you're going to be needing a bit more than that to change the traits. And then Divine Code 6, the Grails, the tickets, and they also have the reward maps that can give you the orbs and tickets. They also have 108 daily summoning event revivals. Yeah, 108 free summons. You better make the space in your barracks, because you're going to be having some new units, whether you like it or not, with the free summons, and everyone is going to be having it. This kind of banner is also going to be having the free-to-play Spark, which is good, because if you're trying to merge up any of these units, and if you do have the orbs, then it is going to be a guaranteed summon, and this is going to be active from 15th April to May 5, so basically before the Fallen banner comes out. And then we have got the celebratory guaranteed legendary hero summon, which does have a lot of heroes for each color. A lot of them are actually pretty old, and some of them may be your merge projects because of them appearing in the holo forms. But the colors that appear for the summoning are going to be completely random. So if you want to summon on the Bluestone, and if you do not get Bluestone, then it's going to be annoying. And if you want my opinion on which color is the best for summoning on to get the most value, then I would have these colors. I think green and colorless is good, because the fact that we have got legendary male Koran is good, because when he appears in the rotation for the arena bonus units, it can be helpful. Same goes for Legendary Milches, who's also a good nuke with the pass built in. So it's really good to have the compression in this warp blocking metagame. And you also get the high dragon wall for the scoring if you're trying to build up any kind of dragon from the green color with Legendary Male Korin. Then the colorless does have Legendary Micaiah, who I do feel like is the best unit out of the colorless pool because she can just hit really hard. But again, the Hardy Bearing of Tiki is going to be stopping the Desperation playstyle like hers. Legendary Sita did get a pretty decent remix. And there are a couple of units with the upcoming refines like Legendary Nana, Legendary Teatra, and Legendary Ninian this year. So if you get one copy of them and if they end up getting a good refine and remix, then the payoff is going to be quite nice. Then we have got another event which has got even more high value, Lord version of so many characters, the rearmed versions, the duo versions, even the emblem versions. So these events are going to be having 5 emblem heroes, and these are going to be split into multiple banners, and these banners are going to be having the tickets, so you can have the schedule of these banners, so you can try and save for these banners if you like any of these lords quite a lot. And if you want to get their rearmed, attuned, or emblem versions, which are a lot harder to get compared to their older legendary versions like Legendary Roy or Legendary Leaf, for example, which is there in the free-to-play summon that we've got. And the focus rate is going to be 8%, and no non-focus hero is going to be appearing. But unfortunately, the spark is only going to be there if you have FEH Pass. So it's not a free-to-play spark, of course. So that's why the Hero Rises banner was your best chance of getting some of the emblem heroes like Sigurd and also Lyn. And then we also had Emblem Marth in the Hero Fest, so I think those were the better chances, because if you do not have FEH Pass, then you are not going to be able to spark, and they're likely going to be splitting the emblem heroes into the multiple banners, so not a lot of them are going to be on the same banner. And then we've got some of the Ether Raid structures, which are going to be there that you can put on your Ether Raid's defense. And we also have some accessories added into the accessory shop, which you can try and get. And you also have this 8-bit castle design. And then finally, we've got a new game mode in Your Time to Shine, which is going to be happening from 11th of May. So there's still going to be a month when we get this. So it's going to be after we are told the Fallen Heroes, and this is going to be having the bonus rotation depending on the version. So I think this is really good because it gives you a reason to use many of these older units, which I always appreciate. And it is going to be having decent rewards because it is going to be giving you the orbs in the daily rewards and also for clearing up the levels. And this kind of game mode is basically going to be the Hall of Forms version of the status effect. So you basically get the status effect, which you can choose and have on that kind of unit. So it is going to be such an interesting thing because technically many of the units are not able to get a lot of those status effects that easily. So having those kinds of status on your older units is just going to be so much fun to use in this kind of game mode and just destroy the enemies with. It's kind of similar to a Seer Snare. I hope the difficulty is to that kind of mark. That kind of PvE content is really rewarding when you use your older favorites with these kinds of new skills and effects that you can try and stack up. So that was the FEH channel that we got. Having 108 free summons is unhinged, but I like it. And this banner is also going to be having Attuned Tiki. So hopefully we get younger Xane with a really good preferred weapon. It would be fun to have in the Grail shop. And you can click the link on the screen right now to check out my breakdown of the refines that we had this month, including of Ninja, Lyn, and Dedu. And you can also subscribe and hit the notification bell because I wish YouTube sub boxes were as functional as Brave Crom is going to be in this kind of new game mode that we're going to be getting next month. So with that, I'll see you guys next time. Thanks so much for watching and have a great day.